Hello, my name is David Cho. I'm attending Walden University and I'm working towards a Master of Science in Education. This presentation is designed for course EDUC 6617 with Dr. Pamela Cole. In this presentation on July 2nd, 2020, I will be presenting about what happens in the brain when learning occurs, how teachers can promote learning using the understandings of neuroscience, and how the discoveries in neuroscience have changed the perspective roles of teachers. By the end of the course, you will be able to describe what happens in the brain when learning occurs, give an example of how teachers can create learning experiences, and explain how the discoveries in neurology change the views and roles of teachers. What do you know about the brain? Did you know that it weighs roughly 2.7 to 3 pounds? Did you know that it is the size of a newspaper when laid out flat? The brain consists of many different sections. An example are the lobes of the brain. The brain has a frontal lobe, which is responsible for thinking, solving problems, and emotions. A temporal lobe, which is responsible for memory, understanding, and language. A parietal lobe, responsible for mental perception. An occipital lobe, responsible for vision. And a cortex for movement. Needless to say, the brain is responsible for thought and function of the body. So, how does learning look like in the brain? The reactions are actually pretty simple. The neuron or brain cell, when stimulated, creates an electrical signal through the axon. The axon is like a road from the neuron. The electrical signal stimulates chemicals known as neurotransmitters to be released to the dendrites of another neuron. The electrical signals bounces to the other neuron and back. This process creates learning. When repeated, it strengthens that connection and retains the learning. Connections not made are eventually lost in process known as pruning. It is interesting to note that although the potential for neural connections are highest after birth and at puberty, the brain continues to make new connections throughout a person's entire life. With their understanding of how learning occurs, how can teachers reinforce learning in the classroom? One method is by creating lessons that involve the senses of the human body. Instead of focusing mostly on reading worksheets and tests, teachers can create group projects where students socialize, interact with their surrounding, and be captivated through curiosity. Teachers can include music, sound, or visuals to stimulate the senses of hearing and vision. Activities can range from role plays, games, outdoor observations. Simply put, the more you stimulate the senses, the more likely a significant neural connection will be made. Creating a neural connection once is not enough to embark meaningful learning to students. The brain will eventually prune off any unused connections that are made. That is why teachers need to reinforce learning with repetition. In the words of Dr. Wolf, practice makes permanent. The more the connection fires signals back and forth, the stronger the connection is. Teachers can include repetition in their classroom by revisiting big ideas, themes, and learning outcomes throughout the school year. For example, teachers can revisit themes of manifest destiny, simplification, strategies for persuasive writing, or the scientific method. The environment of the classroom also plays a critical role in learning. Studies have found that under stimulated environments can negatively impact neural connections in the brain. In other words, classrooms that lack socialization, student voice, challenge, and relationships becomes an understimulated environment that will impede neural connections. Therefore, teachers should seek to create classrooms that welcome socialization, challenge, curiosity, and the opportunity to be stimulated. Lastly, teachers should design their curriculum in a way that promotes meaningful learning experiences. Dr. Wolf describes two types of memories: rote rehearsal and elaborative rehearsal. She explains that rote rehearsal is a neural connection that is retained for a short time, but when not used, is easily forgotten. Wolf explains that elaborative rehearsal, which requires making meaning of the connection, is effective in retaining the learning long term and in transferable ways. Teachers can create long term learning experiences for students by avoiding rote rehearsal assignments like worksheets and tests. Instead, teachers can design engaging lessons that involve skills which will be transferable to situations outside the lesson. This will provide opportunities for students to retain the neural connection by using the skills and knowledge gained in experiences outside of the classroom. One of the most revealing truths that come from the discoveries of neurology is the role of teachers. Neuroscience not only provides a biological and scientific explanation of what learning is, it also gives a whole new perspective on the importance of teachers in society. More than teachers who teach math, history, English, or science, teachers wire brains for the future world. Teachers have the responsibility to encourage connection in one area and allow connections in others to remain unused and pruned. Teachers shape the very minds of the future generations in communities, the nation, and the world. So, in conclusion, the brain is an important organ in the body that is responsible for thought and bodily function. Learning occurs when signals and chemicals are fired and released between two neurons. There are many effective ways that a teacher can promote learning in the classroom using this knowledge, such as by creating highly stimulating lessons, environments, and repetition. For our exit task, discuss and write your response to the questions. What happens in the brain when learning occurs? How can teachers create learning experiences in the classroom using the understandings of neural connections? Explain how the discoveries in neurology change the views and roles of teachers. Please write your response to these questions as our assessment. The next several slides contain the sources that were used in the presentation. Thank you and have a wonderful day.